In this session, we will see the basics of lake rejuvenation process. First of all, we must understand the distinction of rejuvenation versus routine maintenance. Then we consider when to start a rejuvenation project, and with what goals. 2. What are the approaches for rejuvenating a lake? If we want to roll back the status of the lake to a historical baseline date, then how to define it? How to reconcile the need to preserve our legacy with the need to develop the area? And how to account for the changing hydraulics of the area, including changing direction of water and also the increase in production of sewage as population grows. And 3. How to develop a consistent framework for such rejuvenation projects, so that lakes are not taken up and rejuvenated in a random fashion? How do we decide who the stakeholders are, livelihood versus environment versus quality of life? How to streamline the lake rejuvenation framework and process? How should the upstream and downstream considerations be included? In other words, how to balance the populations living in the catchment area and the command area? How to identify the specific roles that are to be played by a given lake? How to engage the stakeholders, including government agencies and sponsor, and build consensus among them? What happens when there are disagreements and we are unable to reach consensus? Next, let us consider when we need to call for a rejuvenation instead of relying on routine maintenance. There are 4 cases in which rejuvenation is called for. 1. The quality of lake water degrades beyond a minimum threshold. 2. The health index score of the lake drops below limit. 3. Alterations are needed in the lake to fulfill a specific role of the lake. This typically happens when the lake is assigned a new role. And 4. Specific lake assets need urgent repairs or replacement. Here is the master list of lake assets for reference. The rejuvenation project for a lake can have 6 different focus areas. 1. The focus of the project is on improving the water quality or desilting of the lake. 2. The focus is on correcting the food chain, or adjusting the littoral zone of the lake. 3. The focus is on creating a habitat for specific target group of birds, etc. 4. The focus is on repairs or replacement of specific lake assets. 5. The focus is on removal of encroachment and recovery of lake land. Or 6. The focus is on changing the role of a lake, with a complete restructuring. We can think of at least 10 roles for Bangalore lakes. A lake can play multiple roles at a time. 1. As a freshwater reservoir. Here, the maximum holding capacity and control on water release is desirable. Also, the lake water must not get contaminated. 2. Flood mitigation. Such lake is emptied before heavy rains arrive, and they absorb the flood waters. 3. As a buffer tank, where fluctuation in the flow is absorbed by holding the water for some time. 4. As a habitat for migratory or local birds. This involves setting up vegetation for food and nesting of birds. 5. Setting up a biodiversity park for vegetation and birds. 6. Setting up jogging, walking, and biking tracks around the lake. 7. Setting up the lake as a water sports center. 8. Optimizing the lake for fishing, either as a hobby or for livelihood. 9. Setting up a children's park. And 10. A community center such as amphitheater, hall, etc. Next, we will see a proposed framework for lake rejuvenation and management, in which sweeping reforms are suggested. In this presentation, we will cover the following topics. 1. Why do we have a water crisis? And 2. How to resolve the crisis. We will consider 4 aspects of the solution. 1. New approach in water budget and water balancing. 2. Engineering efforts required in implementation. 3. Changes required in government organization. And 4. New workflow for lake system management. Let's start with why we have a water crisis. We have 2 main sources of water, Kaveri water and groundwater. About 45% of our water supply comes from groundwater.
Our rainfall actually exceeds these 2 supplies. But we do not capture this abundant rainwater.
After use, most of this water flows out of the city, as sewage. Only a little part of it goes to recharge the groundwater. Thus we draw 700 million liters of groundwater every day, and recharge only a fraction of it. As a result, our groundwater is depleting rapidly. While our water supply will not improve, our growing population will go on demanding more and more water. Thus, by next year, we will have no groundwater at all. If any groundwater is left, it will be unfit for use.
We are also polluting what groundwater is left.
In short, we will have a 50% shortage of water by next year. And that will take grip of the city gradually, not overnight.
How will we deal with this acute water shortage?
The only solution is to stop wasting our 2 largest water sources, rainwater and sewage. Next, we will see the solution, which begins with water budgeting and water balancing.
The solution consists of 4 parts. 1. Do not let the sewage leave the city, treat it and reuse. 2. Do not let the rainwater flow away. Capture it and use. 3. Boost the groundwater recharge with good quality water. 4. Use less groundwater till the water table improves. This is the new water balance, all over the city.
So how do we implement that water balance model across the city? We must make a separate water budget for each watershed. Note that we cannot manage this task on the basis of wards or constituencies. Check how much water is needed, and how much water is actually available from different sources. Check if the available water is being contaminated. Launch drives to reduce water consumption. Reuse the treated sewage, mixed with rainwater. The lake will collect rainwater and treated sewage in 3:1 ratio. This mix can be supplied to the area surrounding the lake. This is the new water balance, where we have enough water for our needs.
But we must carefully monitor the quality of water in the drains, wetlands and lake, because that is the water we will consume.
To implement this strategy in the city, we must break down the whole terrain in watersheds, and then manage each watershed. These watersheds will not be contained within specific ward boundaries. To understand this, first look at our water sources across the city. The left picture shows the 3 valleys, with drains marked in white, and wetlands marked in yellow. The right side map shows our lakes. These are our water system assets. They will be used to store the rainwater and treated sewage. This also calls for a paradigm shift in multiple areas. 1. For each watershed, set up a water budget. Account for incoming water and how much water is spent. 2. The water resources will be our lifeline. Therefore we must treat them as our precious assets. 3. Identify all stakeholders in the area, and balance their needs. 4. Involve the public in water resource management. Make all data in public domain. 5. Establish well-defined processes and declare them as public charters. Define metrics for all processes and share the data in public domain. And 6. Streamline the funding for water resource management. Next, we will examine the engineering efforts required in implementing the solution. There are 4 major engineering challenges. 1. To provide totally separate pipelines for rainwater and raw or treated sewage. 2. To set up a large number of STPs and constructed wetlands required for water treatment. 3. To sink 1 million rainwater harvesting wells across the city. 4. Setting up the local water supply systems that recycles water in each watershed. Note that the overall holding capacity of the city lakes may not be sufficient. In that case, some water treatment may have to be done outside the city limits. In other words, we may need to set up the same infrastructure outside the city. In the previous section, we listed various water assets, which need to be used as a single system. However, the main problem is that these assets belong to different agencies. As a result, they do not plan and manage a unified water system. Therefore, for smooth implementation of the solution, some changes are required in the government organization. Now we will see how a change in the government organization streamlines the process. Set up a central leadership with a single deliverable, which is integrated water resource management. Set up a cross-disciplinary expert team to guide this central water authority. The same team must reimagine the entire workflow and processes for water budgeting and management. All lake-related assets must be designed and managed as a set. This includes stormwater drains, sewerage lines, all STPs, rainwater harvesting wells, wetlands, and lakes. All agencies dealing with water in any form will report to the Central Water Authority. These agencies include lake custodians, BWSSB, and KTCDA. Finally, the state government must allocate adequate budget for the water management. It must be recognized that the CSR contribution will amount to 5 to 10% at best. Currently, lake rejuvenation projects are taken up sporadically. Even after the rejuvenation, the lake continue to receive sewage. Thus all the effort is wasted. Worse, rejuvenation of the lake does not contribute to the city's water management goals. Next, we will examine the new proposed workflow for lake system management.
The process starts with a city-wide integrated water management plan. From this, valley-wise water management plans and targets are derived. From this area-wide plans and targets, lake-wise plans and targets are derived. At this stage, we need to form a lake committee from all stakeholders. This team defines the lake vision document, with local aspirations. A detailed project report is prepared based on the lake-wise plans and lake vision document. This DPR is reviewed by public, and the lake team deals with all objections. This DPR is passed through a single window clearance system. Based on the approved DPR, tenders are invited. The approved DPR is also used to attract sponsors. The state undertakes to provide the main funds, supplemented by the CSR funds. All details such as scope of work and sponsorship are finalized. The lake team monitors the progress of the project. The project is cleared stage by stage. As each stage is cleared, its payment is made to the contractor. Timely payments are crucial to ensure that there is no corruption. Once the project is completed, the team switches to day-to-day management mode. A separate contract is made to drive the lake system management.
We also need to re-engineer all the processes and procedures. We will see the existing shortcomings and the proposed improvements. These changes address 4 goals. 1. Management of lake system must be asset-based. 2. All stakeholders' needs must be balanced. 3. All stakeholders must be involved actively. 4. Governance in management of government and CSR funds. First, we will see the changes needed to ensure that the management of lake system is asset-based. 1. Lakes are not valuated at all.
Their value must be counted in terms of assets.
2. Government takes credit for announcing large budget projects, which don't materialize later.
Credit can be given only when assets are actually created or rejuvenated.
3. Projects have questionable results.
Projects must have specific asset-based targets.
4. There is no accountability for project spending.
We must establish asset-wise accounting of spending.
5. Custodians get away with mismanagement of water assets.
We must conduct social audit of assets to bring accountability.
Next, we will see the changes needed to ensure that all stakeholders' needs are balanced. 1. We don't have a concept of stakeholders.
We must identify all stakeholders and their needs.
2. Stakeholders infighting blocks many projects.
Formal team of stakeholders will support the lake project.
Next, we will see the changes needed to ensure that all stakeholders are involved actively. 1. Stakeholders are not allowed to get involved in the lake system.
We must involve all stakeholders, so that their vigil keeps the water resources in good condition.
2. No experts are allowed in lake management.
Experts must be included in local and core teams.
3. Custodians abandon the water resources in their charge.
If all stakeholders are involved, they will force rejuvenation and management.
4. Data not captured nor shared to public.
Data must be captured and shared online.
5. The data is not reviewed periodically, and no lessons are drawn.
We must have regular semi-annual public reviews.
This diagram shows the all-inclusive organization needed to manage the water resources. A core committee handles the city-wide issues, while lake-wise issues are handled by the lake-specific team. All the teams are made of all stakeholders and experts. Next, we will see the changes needed to ensure good governance of government and CSR funds. 1. CSR is treated as the main and only source of money.
CSR is only supplementary fund. Up to 95% of the budget must be funded by the government.
2. The donor is forced to become the executor of the project.
Donor is customer for the project. He may not have the capacity to execute the project.
3. The MOU considers that CSR funding is the donor's obligation.
CSR is voluntary, ex gratia, and the donor should in full control of his funds.
4. The MOU makes the CSR commitment unconditionally binding on the donor.
The CSR installments are tied to results, voidable, and retractable.
5. The donor has to pay penalty for non-payment or delays. There is no exit clause.
Donor must not be penalized for non-payment.
6. The CSR funds are invited for a project even before its DPR is approved. If the DPR approval takes long time, the donor's annual CSR budget is wasted.
Invite CSR funds for pre-approved projects only.
To sum up, we can deal with the water crisis by 1. Uniting all water-related government agencies, for integrated water resource management. 2. Water budgeting, and water balancing across the city. 3. Building separate pipeline networks to carry rainwater and sewage. 4. Setting up constructed wetlands to treat sewage. 5. Adopting a new workflow for lake system management. 6. Introducing reforms in all processes. And 7. Involving all stakeholders in the water system management. Thank you.